"He reminds me of your lost son," said the director's bride upon seeing a boy with sad eyes. Emily Johnson was radiant on what should have been the happiest day of her life. After 2 years of dating Michael Reynolds, the famous film director, they were finally getting married in the garden of the most exclusive club in New York City. That was when she spotted the boy standing at the entrance, selling small bouquets of white roses. Something about those melancholy eyes made her stop mid-stride along the aisle leading to the altar. The boy couldn't have been more than 12 years old, his messy brown hair tousled by the wind, wearing a faded green shirt that had seen better days. "Michael," she whispered, gripping her fiancé's arm tightly. "That boy over there at the entrance." "What about him?" Michael asked without looking, adjusting the cuff of his white shirt. "He looks so much like your son." The words left Emily's lips like a gunshot. Michael froze instantly, as if he'd been punched in the gut. His eyes darted in the direction she pointed, and for a moment, he forgot to breathe. The boy was there, arranging flowers on a makeshift little table, oblivious to the arriving guests. The late afternoon light illuminated his face, and Michael felt his legs go weak. The resemblance was undeniable. "It can't be," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Michael, he has the same eyes as the ones in those old photos you showed me of little Ethan." "The same face shape," Emily pressed, noticing how pale her fiancé had become. Michael Reynolds was a successful man. At 42, he had directed some of the most acclaimed films in the industry. But there was one wound in his heart that had never fully healed, the separation from his son Ethan, which had happened 12 years earlier, during a divorce that turned into an endless war. "Emily, you don't understand. I haven't seen my son in over a decade. Jessica disappeared with him after the judge granted shared custody. I searched every corner of this country." His voice trembled. At that exact moment, the boy lifted his head, as if sensing he was being watched. His eyes met Michael's for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. There was something familiar in that gaze, a deep sadness that mirrored the pain Michael had carried for so many years. "Let's keep going," Michael said, forcing a smile. "I can't let ghosts from the past ruin our wedding." But Emily wasn't convinced. Throughout the entire ceremony, she couldn't take her eyes off the boy. He remained there, quiet, selling his flowers to a few late-arriving guests. There was something about his posture, the way he held the flowers, that unsettled her. The priest had just begun speaking about love and commitment when Emily made a decision that would change everything. "Father, could you wait just one moment?" she interrupted, causing murmurs among the 200 guests. "Emily, what are you doing?" Michael whispered, embarrassed. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked determinedly toward the boy. The guests watched her every step with growing curiosity. "Hi, sweetheart," she said gently, crouching to his level. "What's your name?" "My name's Jason, ma'am," he replied, intimidated by the sight of the bride in all white. "Jason, those are such beautiful flowers. Would you like to help me with something very special?" The boy's eyes brightened slightly. It was rare for anyone to speak to him so kindly. "Yes, ma'am." "How would you like to be our ring bearer?" Emily asked, taking a small white pillow from the maid of honor's hands. "You could carry the rings down the aisle for us." A murmur rippled through the guests. Michael felt his heart racing dangerously. Up close, the resemblance was even more unsettling. "Can I really do this?" Jason asked, incredulous. "Of course you can. You'd be helping me so much," Emily smiled. When Jason approached the altar carrying the rings, Michael had to lean on the best man's arm to keep from falling. The boy had a small scar on his chin, exactly like the one Ethan had gotten at age 2 when he fell off his bike in the backyard. "Thank you, Jason," Michael managed to say as the boy handed him the rings. "You're welcome, sir. You look like someone I've seen on TV." The revelation hit Michael like a bolt of lightning. Jason recognized him from somewhere. Emily noticed her fiancé's reaction and decided she couldn't let it slide. "Jason, where do you live?" she asked warmly. "I live nearby, in Hope Village, with my mum. She's sick today, so I'm selling flowers by myself." Hope Village. Michael knew that neighborhood well. It was exactly where Jessica and Ethan had lived before the divorce. Too much of a coincidence to ignore. The ceremony continued. but neither bride nor groom could focus on the priest's words. Michael trembled so much he could barely slide the ring onto Emily's finger. His hands were icy with sweat, and he felt as if the world were spinning around him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers so much. Now back to the story. When the priest finally declared them husband and wife, the first thing Michael did was search for Jason with his eyes. The boy was still there, packing his flowers into the small wicker basket he carried. "Michael, let's talk to him," Emily said, reading her husband's thoughts. They approached together. Jason gave them a shy smile. "Thank you so much for letting me help with the wedding. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," the boy said. "Jason, can I ask you something?" Michael tried to keep his voice steady. "What's your mother's name?" "Jessica. Jessica Collins," Jason answered, without hesitation. Michael's world collapsed in that moment. Collins was his ex-wife's maiden name. During their marriage, she had become Jessica Reynolds, but apparently she'd gone back to her old name. "And your father?" Emily asked gently. Jason's face instantly darkened. "I don't have a father. Well, I do, but he left me and my mum when I was little. My mum says he only cares about his work, that he never wanted a real family." Each word was a stab to Michael's heart. Jessica had told the boy a completely twisted version of the truth. He had never abandoned anyone. On the contrary, he'd fought desperately to stay in touch with his son. "Jason," Michael said, his voice choked, "do you remember anything from when you were little? Any games? Any special person?" The boy thought for a few seconds. "I vaguely remember a man who took me to the park and taught me to ride a bike. But my mum says I was dreaming, that it never happened." Michael remembered those moments perfectly. Every Sunday afternoon, he'd taken Ethan to Central Park to ride bikes. The boy had learned to pedal on one of those afternoons, and the joy in his eyes had been one of the greatest happinesses of Michael's life. "Jason, would you like to come to our reception?" Emily suggested. "There's lots of good food, music, and you could have some fun." "I can't, Mum. I have to go home to take care of my mom, and I still have some flowers to sell." "What if I buy all your flowers?" Michael offered, pulling out his wallet. "Then you could stay with us a while." Jason looked at the few flowers he had left, then at the bills Michael was holding out. It was much more money than he could earn in an entire week. "Would you really buy all of them?" "Of course, and I'll even give you a ride home afterward." Emily watched the interaction between the two and felt her heart tighten. There was a natural connection between them, something that went beyond physical resemblance. The way Michael looked at Jason, the natural kindness he showed, everything indicated her instincts were right. During the party, Jason was enchanted by everything he saw. It was a world completely different from what he knew. People were elegantly dressed, waiters were serving drinks in crystal glasses, and a live band played music. "Have you never been to a party like this?" Emily asked, sitting beside him at one of the tables. "No, Mum. We don't have money for these things. My mom works hard, but it's tough to pay the bills." Michael, who was chatting with some nearby guests, didn't miss a word of the conversation. Knowing his son had grown up struggling financially while he prospered professionally was devastating. "Jason, do you go to school?" Emily continued. "Yes, I do. I'm in 6th grade. I really like studying, especially English. My teacher says I have a talent for writing stories." The interest in writing was another trait Ethan had shown since he was little. Michael remembered how the boy loved making up stories about superheroes and fantastic adventures. Just then, a woman appeared at the entrance of the hall, visibly upset. She looked around, searching for someone. "Mom!" Jason shouted, waving at her. Michael felt his blood run cold. It was Jessica. Even after all these years, he would recognize her anywhere. She was thinner, with a few grey streaks in her brown hair, but it was definitely her. Jessica hurried over to where Jason was and grabbed his arm, seemingly not noticing Michael. "Jason, I've been looking everywhere for you. What are you doing here?" "Mom, these nice people invited me to their party. They bought all our flowers," the boy explained excitedly. Only then did Jessica look up and see Michael. The color drained completely from her face. "Michael," she murmured, as if she'd seen a ghost. Jessica, he replied, trying to keep his composure. The entire hall seemed to freeze in that moment. Nearby guests sensed the tension and began whispering among themselves. "Let's go, Jason," Jessica said, pulling the boy by the arm. "But, Mom, they were so kind to me." "Now," she ordered, sharper than she intended. Emily stood up, determined not to let the situation slip out of control. "Mrs. Reynolds, please don't leave. We can talk civilly," she said. "There's nothing to talk about," Jessica replied curtly. "Come on, Jason." "Jessica, wait." Michael finally found his voice. "Please, it's been 12 years since I've seen my son." "Your son?" Jessica laughed bitterly. "You lost the right to call him that the day you chose your career over your family." Jason looked confusedly between the adults, trying to understand what was happening. "Mom, who is this man?" The question echoed through the hall like a gunshot. Jessica hesitated for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. "No one important, sweetheart. Let's go." "He's your father, Jason," Michael said, unable to hold back any longer. "I'm your father." The boy froze completely. His eyes darted between Michael and Jessica, processing the information he'd just heard. "That's not true," Jessica said quickly. "Jason, don't believe him." "Why would he lie about something like that?" Jason asked, his voice small and confused. Michael Reynolds knelt down to the boy's level, tears streaming freely down his face. "Jason, I didn't abandon you. I've been searching for you all these years. I never stopped loving you." "Lies!" Jessica screamed. "You never cared about us." "Jessica, you know that's not true," Michael countered. "You disappeared with him, changed your address without telling me. I spent fortunes on private detectives trying to find you." Emily Johnson watched the scene with a broken heart. Seeing her husband's pain and the boy's confusion was almost unbearable. "Jason," she said softly, "do you remember that chain you always wear around your neck? Can I see it?" Jason pulled out a small chain from under his shirt. Hanging from it was a silver pendant shaped like a movie camera. Michael nearly staggered backward. He had given that pendant to Ethan on his 4th birthday, saying that one day they would make films together. "Where did you get this chain?" Michael asked, his voice trembling. "I've always had it. Mom said it was a gift from someone special when I was a baby," Jason replied. Jessica turned even paler. It was the missing proof. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now continuing... "Jessica, please," Michael begged. "Don't do this to me again. Don't take my son away from me again." "He's not your son anymore," she shouted, completely losing control. "You made your choice 12 years ago." "What choice?" Jason asked, clearly disturbed. "Mum, what are you talking about?" Some party guests began to edge closer, curious about the drama unfolding before them. Emily motioned for them to keep their distance. "Jason," she said gently, "how about we go somewhere more private to talk? All of us together as a family." "We are not a family," Jessica protested. "Maybe we should be," Emily replied firmly. "For Jason's sake." Michael looked at his wife with gratitude. Having Emily by his side in this crucial moment made all the difference. "Please, Jessica," he tried again. "At least let me explain my side of the story to Jason." Jessica looked at her son, who watched her with pleading eyes. She could see he was desperate to understand this confusing situation. "Fine," she said finally, "but I stay for the whole conversation." They made their way to a small private room on the club's 2nd floor. Jason sat between Michael and Jessica, while Emily took a nearby armchair. "Jason," Michael began, choosing his words carefully, "when you were little, your mother and I were married, but there came a time when we couldn't live together as husband and wife anymore." "Why?" Jason asked innocently. Michael glanced at Jessica, hoping she might help explain, but she remained silent, arms crossed, defensively. "Sometimes adults have differences they can't resolve," Michael continued. "Your mother thought I worked too much and didn't spend enough time with the family. Maybe she was right about some things." "And then you split up?" Jason asked. "Yes, but I always wanted to keep being your father. The judge even said I could see you on weekends and during vacations." Jason turned to Jessica. "Is that true, Mum?" Jessica hesitated before answering. "The judge did say that," she admitted reluctantly. Then why did I never see my dad? The question came with devastating innocence. Michael took a deep breath before continuing. Because your mother moved without telling me. When I went to pick you up at your old house, the neighbors said you'd moved, but no one knew where. Mom? Jason looked at Jessica, searching for answers. I wanted to start over, she said, avoiding her son's gaze. But why didn't you let me see my dad? The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. Jessica knew there was no answer that could justify what she had done. I was angry, she finally admitted. So very angry. And I thought if I took you away from him, you'd forget, and we'd be happier. But I didn't forget, Jason said, touching the pendant around his neck. I always knew something was missing. Michael leaned toward his son, tears blurring his vision. Jason, I tried to find you. I hired detectives, put ads in newspapers, searched every school in the city. I never gave up on you. Is that true? Jason asked. Emily stood up and went to her purse, pulling out her phone. Jason, can I show you something? She said. On the phone, she had saved some photos Michael kept in his office. There were dozens of posters with pictures of little Ethan, offering rewards for any information about him. Jason stared at the images with wide eyes. Is that boy in the photo me? Yes, Michael confirmed. I made these posters and spread them all over the city. I never stopped looking for you. Mom, Jason turned to Jessica, his voice trembling. Did you know about this? Jessica looked away, unable to face her son's question. I thought it was for the best, she whispered. Best for who? Jason asked, a new anger rising in his voice. For me. I grew up believing my father didn't want me. Jason, don't speak to your mother like that, Michael intervened, surprising everyone. She did what she thought was right at the time. Emily watched in admiration as Michael showed maturity even in the face of so much pain. He was more concerned about protecting the relationship between Jason and Jessica than blaming his ex-wife. But it wasn't right, Jason protested. Both of you lied to me. You lied saying he abandoned me, and he turned to Michael, lied saying you looked for me but never found me. Jason, I never lied to you, Michael said firmly. I truly searched for you all these years. Then why didn't you find me? The question was fair and painful. Michael looked at Jessica, who remained silent. Because your mother even changed your name, he revealed. You're no longer Ethan Reynolds. Now you're Jason Collins. It was so hard to track you with a completely new identity. Jason stayed silent for a few minutes, processing all these revelations. His entire life had been built on lies, and now he discovered he had a father who always loved and searched for him. Can I ask something? Emily said softly. Everyone looked at her. Jason, did you ever feel incomplete? Like something important was missing in your life? The boy thought for a few seconds before answering. Always, especially when I saw other boys playing with their dads in the park. I always wondered what it would be like to have a father. Michael couldn't hold back anymore. He stood up and went to Jason, kneeling beside his chair. Jason, I know this is all very confusing for you. I know we lost so many years. But if you give me a chance, I'd love to be your father again. Jason looked into Michael's eyes for a long time. There was so much sincerity and love in that gaze that he felt something shift in his chest, as if a heavy stone he'd carried for years was finally being lifted. You really want me? The question came out in a whisper. More than anything in the world, Michael answered without hesitation. And you won't leave me again? I never left you, son, and I never will. Jason threw himself into his father's arms, and the two cried together for the first time in 12 years. Emily needed to step out of the room for a few minutes to compose herself. So overwhelming was the emotion of that reunion. Jessica watched the scene with mixed feelings. On one hand, she felt guilty for depriving the two of that moment for so long. On the other, there was still a part of her that feared losing her son to Michael. What now? She asked when father and son finally pulled apart. Now we'll have to learn to be a family again, Michael replied. The three of us. And Emily too. Emily too? Jason asked. Emily is my wife now. That means she's your stepmother. But only if you want her to be, of course. Jason looked at Emily, who gave him a warm smile. You're the one who helped me find my dad, he said. "I think you must be a really good person." "I hope to be," Emily answered. "And I hope we can get to know each other better." They stayed in that room talking for another 2 hours. Michael told Jason about his movies, how he'd thought of him all this time, about the birthday gifts he'd bought and saved, waiting for the day he could give them. Jason talked about school, his dream of writing stories, how he helped his mother by selling flowers to support the family. Every word was precious to Michael, who absorbed every detail of the life he'd missed. "Dad," Jason said, testing the word carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Anything you want." Michael smiled. "Why did you want to be a film director?" Michael smiled, remembering how little Ethan used to ask the same question. "Because I love telling stories, and movies are a way to tell stories that can move many people at once." "I love telling stories too," Jason said excitedly. "Maybe I can learn to make movies too." "I'd love to teach you everything I know," Michael replied, his heart overflowing with joy. When they finally left the room, the wedding reception was winding down. The remaining guests glanced curiously at the unusual group returning. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. "Michael," Emily said, "how about we go home and continue our conversation there? That way Jason can see where his father lives now." "Can I, Mom?" Jason asked Jessica. She hesitated. The idea of letting her son go to Michael's house frightened her. What if he decided he wanted to stay there? What if Michael tried to take custody? "Jessica," Michael said, reading his ex-wife's thoughts, "I won't try to take Jason from you. He needs both parents. We can find a way to make this work for all of us." "How?" she asked warily. "Jason can spend some weekends with me, some vacations. We can meet regularly, and I can help financially too." The mention of financial help made Jessica relax slightly. She'd struggled alone all these years to support her son, and knew Michael could provide opportunities she never could. "All right," she finally agreed. "But I want to be there for the first visits." "Of course," Michael nodded. "We'll do this the right way for Jason's sake." Michael's house was in an upscale neighborhood of New York City, but he was careful not to overwhelm Jessica and Jason with its luxury. He welcomed them in the kitchen, offering coffee and cookies, creating a warmer, more familiar atmosphere. "Dad," Jason said, still getting used to the word, "can I watch some of your movies?" "Of course. I have all of them here," Michael replied eagerly. They settled into the home theater Michael had set up in the basement. It was a cozy setting, with comfortable armchairs and a large screen. During the movie, Jason kept asking how certain scenes had been filmed, showing a natural curiosity about the filmmaking process. Michael answered patiently, moved to see that his son had inherited his interest in the arts. "Is this actor famous?" Jason asked, pointing at the screen. "Yes, that's Bradley Cooper. Have you seen him somewhere before?" "I think so, on TV," Jason replied thoughtfully. "He's a really nice person." "Maybe one day I'll introduce you two," Michael suggested. Jason's eyes lit up at the possibility. Emily prepared snacks for everyone, trying to make that first night as natural as possible. She could see Jessica was still tense, carefully watching every interaction between Michael and Jason. "Jessica," Emily said when the two were alone in the kitchen, "I want you to know I have no intention of replacing you in Jason's life." "Thank you for saying that," Jessica replied, relaxing a little. "It's just, he's all I have. And he'll always be your son," Emily assured her. "But now he can also have a father in his life. That will only bring good things for him." "Do you really think Michael has changed?" Jessica asked. "Will he really put Jason first?" Emily took a few seconds before answering. "Jessica, I've known Michael for 2 years. In all that time, I've never seen him as emotional as he was today, meeting Jason. I believe he's learned from past mistakes." "I hope you're right," Jessica sighed. When they returned to the living room, they found Michael and Jason drawing together. Michael was teaching his son how to make storyboards, explaining how directors plan movie scenes before filming them. "Look, Mom," Jason said excitedly, "Dad's teaching me how to draw like they do in movies." Jessica smiled at the genuine joy on her son's face. It had been a long time since she'd seen him so happy. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," she said, sitting beside them. "Mom, can I come back next weekend?" Jason asked hopefully. Jessica looked at Michael, who waited for her answer with anticipation. "Yes, you can," she agreed. "But you'll still live with me, okay?" "Okay," Jason nodded quickly. "I just want to get to know my dad better." As the night went on, the tension between the adults eased. Jason was clearly the one bringing them all together, and his happiness at finally having a complete family was contagious. "Michael," Jessica said when Jason went to the bathroom, "I need to apologize to you." "Apologize for what?" "For taking him away, for lying to him about you, for wasting all those years you could have spent together." Michael stayed silent for a few seconds, considering her words. "Jessica, I won't lie and say it wasn't hard. It was the hardest thing in my life. But I understand why you did it. You were hurt, angry, trying to protect our son, the only way you knew how." "Can you forgive me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I already have," Michael replied sincerely. "What matters now is the future, giving Jason the family he deserves." Emily watched the conversation with a quiet smile. She knew this was the moment when real healing began for all of them. When it was time for Jessica and Jason to leave, the boy hugged Michael tightly. "Dad, I want you to know I never stopped dreaming about you," he said. "Even when Mom said you didn't care, something inside me always knew that wasn't true." Michael could barely hold back his tears. "And I never stopped loving you, son. Not for a single day." "See you this weekend?" Jason asked. "If your mother allows it, I'll come pick you up on Saturday morning," Michael replied. "That's fine," Jessica agreed. "Jason, let's get going. It's getting late." On the way home, Jason couldn't stop talking about everything he had discovered that day. Jessica listened patiently, noticing how radiant he was with happiness. "Mom, do you think I did the right thing by forgiving both of you?" he suddenly asked. "What do you mean?" "You lied to me all these years. Maybe I should be angry," Jason reflected. Jessica thought carefully before answering. "Jason, sometimes adults make wrong choices trying to protect the people they love. I thought I was protecting you, but now I see I was wrong." "What about Dad?" "Your father. Your father made mistakes too when you were little. But today I saw that he truly loves you and that he tried to find you all these years." "So we all made mistakes, but now we can try to make things right?" Jason asked with his childlike wisdom. "Exactly," Jessica smiled. "Now we can try to make things right." The following Saturday, Michael arrived promptly at Jessica and Jason's home. It was a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood, very different from where they had lived when they were married. "Good morning, Jessica," he greeted politely. "Good morning. Jason is just finishing getting ready," she replied, inviting him inside. Michael looked around the small living room. The walls were decorated with drawings Jason had made over the years, and there was a shelf with children's books and some DVDs. "Jessica, can I ask you something?" Michael said. "Of course." "Why didn't you reach out to me when things got tough financially? I would have helped." Jessica took a deep breath. "Pride, mostly, and fear, too. I was afraid that if you knew where we were, you'd try to take Jason from me." "I would never do that," Michael assured her. "Jason needs his mother just as much as he needs me." "I know that now," Jessica admitted. "Seeing you two together yesterday, I saw how complete he looked for the first time in a long while." Jason came running down the stairs, clearly excited about the outing. "Dad, you came!" he shouted, jumping into Michael's arms. "Of course I did, I promised, didn't I?" Michael smiled. "What would you like to do today? Can I choose anything? Anything you want?" Jason thought for a few seconds. "I'd like to see where you work, where you make the movies." Michael was surprised and touched by the request. "Are you sure? It might be a little boring for a kid." "I'm sure, I want to see everything." They headed to the studio where Michael worked. It was a large complex with several sound stages where different movies and TV shows were being filmed simultaneously. "Wow," Jason exclaimed at the size of the place. "This is where you work?" "Yes, it is. Come on, I'll show you around." Michael took Jason to see the sets, explaining how they were built and decorated. The boy was fascinated to learn that many of the places that looked real on screen were actually constructions made just for the film. "What about the actors? Are they here today?" Jason asked hopefully. "Some are. Come on, I'll introduce you to a few people." They spent the whole day at the studio. Jason met directors, actors, sound and lighting technicians. Everyone was incredibly kind to him, and some even noticed his resemblance to Michael. "Your son looks just like you, Michael," commented Jennifer, one of the studio's lead actresses. "Thank you," Michael replied, swelling with pride. "Jason, this is Jennifer. She's the star of the movie we're shooting now." "Hi, Jason," Jennifer said warmly. "Your dad talks about you a lot." "He does?" Jason asked, surprised. "Oh, yes. In fact, he has several pictures of you on his office desk." Jason looked at Michael with curiosity. "Photos of me? But how did you get photos of me?" Michael felt a bit embarrassed. I hired a detective who managed to take some pictures of you from a distance. I just wanted to know how you were growing up. You were watching me without me knowing?" The question sounded more curious than accusatory, but Michael felt compelled to explain. "Jason, I know it might seem strange, but I needed to know if you were okay, if you were growing up healthy. I never tried to get close because I didn't want to cause trouble for you and your mom." Jason thought about that revelation. "So, you always knew where I was?" "Not always. It took years to find you. And when I finally did, you were already a big boy, not the baby I remembered. Why didn't you try to talk to me before?" The question was tough, but Michael decided to be completely honest. "Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd reject me. Afraid your mum would disappear with you again. Afraid of causing more pain for all of us." Jason nodded, showing impressive maturity for his age. "I get it. Sometimes we're scared to do the right thing, because it might go wrong." "Exactly," Michael smiled. "You're very wise for just 12 years old." "I learned to be wise because I had to grow up fast to help Mom," Jason explained without self-pity. The words broke Michael's heart. Knowing his son had lost part of his childhood because of their family situation was devastating. During lunch in the studio cafeteria, Jason asked countless questions about the filmmaking process. Michael answered patiently, amazed by his son's intelligence and curiosity. "Dad, can I tell you a secret?" Jason said suddenly. "Of course, son." "I always watched your movies on TV. Mom didn't know because I watched when she was working, but I always felt connected to them somehow." Michael was moved by the confession. "Even without knowing I was your father? Even without knowing? There was something in your movies that touched me here." Jason pointed to his heart. "Now I understand what it was." "What was it?" "Love. All your movies talk about love in some way. Love between couples, love between friends, love between parents and children." Michael could barely control his emotions. Having a son who not only understood his work, but also grasped its deepest messages was more than he had ever dreamed of. "Jason, would you like to be part of one of my movies someday?" The boy's eyes lit up. "I could. Of course. Maybe starting as an assistant, learning how everything works. What do you think?" "I'd love that. But what about school?" "School comes first," Michael said firmly. "But maybe on weekends and breaks you could come here and learn a few things." "You'd really do that for me?" "Son, I'd do anything for you." They spent the whole afternoon at the studio. Jason watched some filming, took notes in a little notebook Michael had given him, and even suggested an improvement for one of the scenes, which, surprisingly, the director accepted. "That boy has an eye for film," commented David, the director working on the project. "He's naturally talented." "He's my son," Michael replied with pride. "Lucky you," David smiled, "and lucky us too. If he wants to pursue this career, he'll be great." By evening, when it was time to take Jason home, the boy was visibly sad to leave. "Dad, can I come back next week?" "If your mom says yes, you can come whenever you want." "And will you teach me more about making movies?" "I'll teach you everything I know," Michael promised. In the car on the way home, Jason asked a question Michael didn't expect. "Dad, are you happy you found me?" "Jason, Meeting you was the most important thing that's ever happened in my life. Even more important than getting married yesterday. More important than Emily? Michael laughed at the innocence of the question. Emily is important to me as my wife. But you're my son. It's a different kind of love, but just as important. Do you think Emily likes me? I'm sure she does. In fact, she was the one who first realized you might be my son. If it weren't for her, we might never have found each other again. So I should thank her. We both should thank her, Michael agreed. When they arrived at Jessica's house, she was waiting anxiously at the door. How was your outing? She asked. It was amazing, Mom, Jason replied excitedly. Dad took me to his studio and I met real actors and saw how movies are made. Jessica looked at Michael with gratitude. Seeing her son so happy was all she had ever wanted. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you for letting me, Michael replied. Jessica, can we talk for a minute? They stepped out into the small garden in front of the house, while Jason went inside to shower. Michael, I saw how happy Jason was when he came back today. I haven't seen him like that in a long time, Jessica said. He's an incredible boy, Jessica. You've done a wonderful job raising him. I did what I could, but I knew he needed a father in his life. And now he has one, Michael smiled. Jessica, I'd like to make a proposal. What kind of proposal? I'd like to help financially with Jason's expenses. Private school, health insurance, clothes, everything he needs. Jessica hesitated. Accepting money from Michael meant admitting she hadn't been able to provide everything her son deserved on her own. It's not charity, Michael continued, reading her thoughts. It's my duty as a father, a duty I should have been fulfilling for the past 12 years. And in return? Nothing in return. I just want my son back in my life. Jessica thought for a few minutes. All right, she finally agreed. But I don't want Jason to think money is more important than the time you spend together. Never, Michael assured her. The money is just to give him more comfort and opportunities. What really matters is our relationship. Then it's settled. In the weeks that followed, a routine developed. Jason spent every Saturday with Michael, sometimes accompanied by Emily, sometimes alone with his father. On Sundays, Michael sometimes joined Jessica and Jason for lunch, creating family moments that had been missing for so long. Jason enrolled in a better private school, where he could further develop his talent for writing and his growing passion for film. His grades improved significantly, and he made new friends. But not everything was perfect. There were moments when tensions arose. Jason sometimes felt confused about where he belonged, whether at his mother's house or his father's. Both Michael and Jessica had to navigate the natural jealousy that occasionally surfaced. One afternoon, Jason came home from school unusually thoughtful. "Mom, can I ask you something?" he said to Jessica. "Of course, sweetheart." "Do you ever regret taking me away from Dad?" The question caught Jessica off guard. "Why are you asking that?" "Because I keep wondering how things might have been different if you two had never separated, or if I had still gotten to see Dad even after you split up." Jessica took a deep breath. "Jason, I regret it every day. Not separating from your father. We really weren't happy together, but I regret keeping you two apart." "Would you do things differently if you could go back?" "I would. I'd try to find a way for you to stay in touch, no matter how hurt I was." "And now? Do you still feel hurt?" Jessica considered the question. "No. Seeing how you two relate, seeing how he truly loves you, I realized I was wrong about many things." "What things?" "I thought he abandoned you because he didn't care. But the truth is, he just didn't know how to balance work and family. And when he tried to find you, I stopped him." Jason hugged his mother. "Mom, I don't love you any less because I love Dad too." "I know, my son, and that's how it should be." This kind of conversation had become common in their home. Jason was naturally thoughtful and asked deep questions that made the adults be honest about their feelings and motivations. One of those Saturday afternoons in the studio, Jason made a discovery that would change everything again. He was rummaging through some old folders in Michael's office when he found a box full of letters. "Dad, what are these letters?" he asked. Michael looked at the box and turned pale. Jason, you shouldn't be going through that. Sorry, I was just looking for a pencil, Jason apologized, but his curiosity had been sparked. Michael hesitated for a few seconds, then decided there would be no more secrets between them. These are letters I wrote to you over the years. I could never send them. Can I read them? If you'd like. Jason opened the first letter, dated just 3 months after Jessica had disappeared with him. It was a letter from a desperate father, explaining to his baby son why he wasn't there and promising he would never stop searching for him. As Jason read the letters, tears began rolling down his face. There were dozens of them, one for every birthday, every Christmas, every important moment Michael had missed. Dad, you really wrote me a letter every year. Every year, son. It was my way of feeling connected to you, even when we were apart. And you kept them all? I did. I hoped one day I could show you so you'd know I never forgot you. Jason kept reading. There were letters about movies Michael wished they could watch together, stories he wanted to tell, games he wanted to teach him. There were sad letters written in moments of despair and hopeful ones, written when new clues about his whereabouts surfaced. Dad, Jason said, using the word naturally for the first time. Can I keep these letters? Of course you can. They've always been yours. That night, Jason took the letters home and spent hours reading them with Jessica by his side. She also cried as she read about the pain Michael had endured all those years. Mom, did you know he suffered so much? Jason asked. I imagined he'd miss you. But I didn't know it was like this, Jessica admitted. Do you think he can forgive me for believing he abandoned me? Sweetheart, he already has. He forgave you the moment he saw you at the wedding. The following Monday, Jason arrived at school with an idea. Ms. Thompson, he said to his English teacher, can I talk to you about a project? Of course, Jason. What is it? I'd like to write a story about fathers and sons who find each other after being separated for so long. The teacher smiled. Ever since Jason had reunited with his father, his writing had improved dramatically, gaining an emotional depth that impressed everyone. Would it be based on a true story? She asked. Partly, yes. I want to write about how misunderstandings can tear families apart, but also how true love always finds a way to bring people back together. That sounds like a wonderful project. Would you like to present it to the class? Can I invite my dad to come watch? Of course you can. Jason spent the next 2 weeks working intensely on his story. He interviewed Michael and Jessica, asking for details about how each had felt during the years of separation. He wrote about the pain of abandonment, the guilt of the lie, but mostly about the power of forgiveness and new beginnings. On the day of the presentation, both Michael and Jessica were present at the school. Emily had also been invited, and the 3 of them sat together in the front row of the classroom. Jason stepped onto the small makeshift stage and began to read his story. His voice was clear and emotional, and everyone in the room remained in absolute silence throughout the entire presentation. He spoke about a boy who grew up without a father, a mother who thought she was protecting her son, and a father who never stopped searching. He spoke about well-intentioned lies that caused unnecessary pain, and how the truth, even when painful, is always liberating. When he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Ms. Thompson needed a few moments to compose herself before she could speak. Jason, that was one of the most beautiful and touching stories I've ever heard. You have an exceptional talent for writing. Thank you, Ms. Thompson, but it's not just talent. It's a story I needed to tell. Michael rose from his chair and went to the stage, hugging his son tightly. I'm so proud of you, he whispered in Jason's ear. I'm proud of you too, Dad, Jason replied. And of Mom too. You're both good people who made mistakes, but had the courage to try and make things right. Jessica joined the embrace, and for a few seconds the 3 of them formed a united family again. Not as husband and wife, but as parents who loved the same child and were willing to work together for his sake. Emily, Jason called, you're part of this family now too. Emily approached and was included in the group hug. That afternoon, they all decided to go to Michael's house together. It was the first time Jessica had entered her ex-husband's new home, and she was struck by the elegantly simple decor. You've changed a lot, she remarked, as Michael prepared coffee for everyone. How so? You're more human, less obsessed with work, more focused on what really matters. Losing Jason taught me a lot, Michael admitted. It taught me that professional success means nothing if you don't have people to share it with. And having Emily in your life. Michael looked at his wife, who was in the living room playing with Jason. Emily taught me it's possible to love again after so much pain. But most of all, she gave me the courage not to give up on you and Jason. How so? If she hadn't insisted we talk to Jason on our wedding day, I might have lost that chance forever. I was too afraid to reach out. Jessica nodded in understanding. She seems like a very special person. She is, and she adores Jason. Sometimes I think she gets more excited than I do for the weekends when he comes to visit. They spent the whole afternoon talking, reminiscing about the good moments of the past and planning for the future. Jason was radiant with joy, seeing his parents speaking so kindly and civilly. "Can I ask a question?" Jason said during dinner. "Always," Michael replied. "Do you think you'll ever be real friends again?" Michael and Jessica looked at each other for a few seconds. "I think we're already becoming friends again," Jessica answered. "Friends who share a wonderful son, and who want the best for him," Michael added. "Great," Jason smiled. "Because I have an idea." "What idea?" Emily asked curiously. "I'd like us to have family dinners at least once a month, all of us together. To talk, share news, and most importantly, to keep being a family, even if not a traditional one." The adults exchanged glances, considering the proposal. "I think it's a beautiful idea," Emily said. "Me too," Jessica agreed. "Then it's decided," Michael sealed the agreement. "Family dinners once a month." "Can I choose the menu sometimes?" Jason asked hopefully. "You always can," Michael laughed. As the months passed, the new family dynamic took root. Jason split his time between the two homes, but always with the certainty that he was loved and wanted in both. Michael and Jessica developed a respectful and affectionate friendship, built on their shared love for their son. Emily proved to be a devoted and caring stepmother. She never tried to replace Jessica, but offered Jason a different perspective on many things. She helped him with homework, took him to museums and exhibits, and most importantly, acted as a mediator whenever conflicts arose between father and son. One day, nearly a year after their reunion, Jason made a discovery that filled him with joy. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Of course, son." "I found out you never stopped sending me gifts, even when you didn't know where I was." Michael was confused. "What do you mean?" "Remember St. Joseph's Orphanage, the one in the neighborhood?" "I do." "Every year on my birthday, an anonymous donation of books, toys, and clothes would arrive. The sister in charge always said it was from a mysterious benefactor." Michael was moved as he realized where Jason was going with this. "How did you figure it out?" "Because I recognized the books. They're the same ones you have in your library. And some toys had tags from the store where you always buy my presents. Jason, you kept giving me birthday gifts all those years, even without knowing where I was. You gave them to other kids who needed them, but deep down, you were giving them to me too." Michael couldn't hold back his tears. "I had to do something on your birthday. It was my way of feeling like I was still your dad, even from afar." "And you were," Jason hugged him. "You never stopped being my dad." This discovery strengthened their bond even more. Jason understood that his father's love had manifested in many different ways over the years, even when they were apart. A year and a half after their reunion, Jason made a decision that surprised everyone. "Dad, Mom," he said during one of their monthly family dinners, "I want to change my name." "What kind of change?" Jessica asked, concerned. "I want to go back to being called Ethan Jason Collins Reynolds. Ethan because it's the name Dad gave me when I was born, Jason because it's the name Mom gave me when we started our new life, Collins because it's Mom's family name, and Reynolds because it's Dad's family name." The four adults at the table were moved by the boy's mature decision. "Are you sure?" Michael asked. "I'm sure. I want to carry both names because they represent the two parts of my story, the part with you and the part with Mom." Won't that confuse you? Jessica asked. No. Actually, it'll make me feel whole. I'm Ethan and Jason at the same time. I'm Michael and Jessica's son. I'm part of both families. The name change was made official a few weeks later. Ethan Jason felt more complete than ever, carrying with him the full story of his life, including the years of separation, which he now understood as a necessary part of his journey. On his 13th birthday, Ethan Jason had two parties. One in the morning at Jessica's house with school friends and neighbors, another in the afternoon at Michael's with studio colleagues and family friends. But it was that evening, when everyone was gathered for the traditional dinner, that he received the most special gift. Ethan Jason, Michael said, I have a proposal for you. What kind of proposal? I'd like you to be my official assistant on the next film, with a salary, set hours, and real responsibilities. Ethan Jason's eyes sparkled. Really? Really? You've learned so much about filmmaking this past year. I think it's time you had an official role on the team. But what about school? School still comes first. You'd only work on weekends and during breaks, and only if your grades stay good. And you're okay with this, Mom? Jessica smiled. I am, as long as you remember you're still a child and need to play and have fun too. And can I invite some friends to visit the studio sometimes? Of course, Michael replied. Then I accept, Ethan Jason shouted, jumping for joy. Emily watched the scene with a smile on her face. Seeing the family she had helped bring together thriving like this was one of the greatest joys of her life. Emily, Ethan Jason suddenly said, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Would you be my official co-godmother? Co-godmother? She asked, confused. Yeah, Mom is my mum. But you also take care of me and love me like I'm your own. So you'd be my co-mom, or official godmother. Emily was moved by the request. I'd be honored, she replied. Great, now our family is officially complete. And it truly was. They had created an unconventional family structure, but one that was deeply loving and functional. Ethan Jason had two homes, 4 people who loved him unconditionally, and above all, the certainty that he would never be abandoned or forgotten again. In the years that followed, Ethan Jason grew both personally and professionally. His grades in school were excellent, and his work at the studio caught the attention of everyone in the field. By the time he turned 15, he had already worked on 3 of his father's films and was writing his own screenplay. His stories were always about families, about reunions, about the human capacity to forgive and start anew. Dad, he said one afternoon as they worked together in the studio, can I tell you a secret? Always, son. I think everything happened the way it was supposed to. How so? If you and Mom hadn't separated, maybe I never would have learned to value family the way I do now. If we hadn't been apart all those years, maybe the reunion wouldn't have been so special. Michael reflected on his son's words. Do you think all that suffering was worth it? I think the suffering taught me to appreciate happiness, and it taught all of us that family isn't something we should take for granted. It's something we should fight for every day. You've become a very wise young man, Michael said proudly. I had good teachers, Ethan Jason smiled. You, Mom, Emily, all of you taught me important things about life. And what's the most important thing you've learned? Ethan Jason thought for a few seconds before answering. That true love always finds a way. It might take time, it might be painful, it might seem impossible sometimes, but if it's true love, it always finds a way to overcome every obstacle. Michael hugged his son, moved by the depth of his words. And I've learned that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unlikely moments, Michael replied. How so? If Emily hadn't convinced me to talk to you on our wedding day, if she hadn't insisted you looked like me, maybe we never would have found each other again. What should have been the happiest day of her life turned into the day that changed our lives forever. Ethan Jason nodded in understanding. Emily is really special, isn't she? Yes, and you know what else? What? She always says it wasn't a coincidence that she saw you that day. She believes it was fate putting you in our path at exactly the right moment. And do you believe in fate? Michael smiled. I believe in love, and I believe love has a mysterious way of bringing together the people who are meant to be. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this reunion story? Do you believe forgiveness can truly heal wounds as deep as these? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. If you have a similar story in your family or know someone who's been through something like this, share it with us. Do you think Emily made the right choice by stepping in at that moment? And what would you have done in her place? Your experiences and reflections mean so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories. Thanks for being here.